Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Network Effect. I'm Amy Henderson, Vice President of Client Relations at Channelnomics, and as always, thank you for joining us. Each episode, we sit down with leaders who are shaping the future of partnerships and ecosystems. I'm joined by Sophy Gray, CEO of 7Demand, a demand generation platform purpose-built for partner ecosystems, helping enterprise technology vendors centrally design, fund, and execute partner-led pipeline programs with a sharp focus on measurable revenue outcomes, not just marketing activity. Sophy works closely with enterprise technology vendors to drive real, attributable pipeline through their partner ecosystems using a centralized vendor-led approach to demand generation. Our focus today is a bold one: why the traditional partner marketing model is structurally broken and what vendors should be doing instead to fund partner pipeline, not just partner activity. Let's welcome Sophy to the show. Well, Sophy, we're so excited to have you today, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation because you spend a lot of time in conversations with senior partner marketing leaders across enterprise tech, hearing what's working, hearing what's not, and where the pressure points really are right now. And that gives you a pretty clear, unfiltered view of the landscape right now. So from those recent conversations, I would love to ask the question of what's the consistent tension you're hearing right now?
I think everybody is having the same kind of conversations, to be honest. And it's just that things are tough. The market's really tough. People are getting laid off, so people are a bit fearful for their jobs. Budgets are being cut, so they're having to do more with less. AI is coming along and changing the way people are working, and people are being told internally, you've got to embrace AI, you've got to use AI, you've got to create your own content, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. But they're not really being told how to. And there's this kind of fear factor that you're going to use AI to create some content or do something that's not going to be great. So there's a bit of nervousness around all of that. And I think people are just a bit scared to stick their head above the parapet and do something a little bit different. Everyone's kind of playing it a little bit safe, and just trying to get through some difficult times, less budget, less resource, but bigger pipeline challenges than they've kind of known. So yeah, it's tough,
Yeah.
tough times.
Yeah. And it's funny that that you mentioned AI and that there's a lot of uncertainty out there in terms of what AI is going to be replacing, right? And we all know that AI is everywhere, right? But your position has consistently been AI is an assistant, not a replacement. So, from your vantage point, where does AI generally add value in partner source demand today?
Well, I think AI has changed the world in the last few months more than it kind of has at all. And it's interesting. So we run our channel meetup events. And when we ran our event last year, there was lots of talk about AI, but it's all very conceptual and what was going to happen in the future. And now people are using AI every day, all day in their jobs. And it's completely changing the world. It's completely changing how people are working, and people are losing their jobs because of AI, and more people will lose their jobs because of AI. And nobody really knows how that's going to impact us. I mean, as a parent, you worry about it. As a friend, you worry about it. For people that, it's touching every single part of society. And I think for partner marketers, there's a huge race for AI adoption. People are trying to figure out how they can use AI to bring more personalization to their programs, how they can bring more analytics into their programs, and how they can use AI to do some forward predictability on the data to show them where revenue is going to come from. We're using AI to analyze partner types, to look at what kind of partners people should be working with. We're using AI to look at the competency and the skill level of partners to help people understand how to build better partner journeys and personalized journeys for vendors. And then on like the creative side, AI is, we're adopting AI internally to improve some of the creative and the analytics and the coding. And it's about a time to market, I think. So it's kind of coming from lots of different angles. AI is changing programs fundamentally. It's changing teams and how people think and how people work. And it's adding to that fear factor I talked about a little bit as well. But it's also able to, make things happen so much quicker. So the time to market for programs and campaigns and activity is so much quicker than it maybe has been previously. But again, that just creates pressure as well. It just feels like everyone's working in a very pressurized world.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And everyone is focused on, I feel like, just activity and busyness and trying to figure out how AI can do more than a human can, more efficiently and quicker than a human can to generate more activity. And I would love to dovetail that train of thought into activity versus pipeline, because you've always insisted, and I love it, that the way that you've put it, that activity isn't necessarily pipeline. And you've been very direct on that point, that a large portion of partner marketing spend generates activity and not necessarily pipeline. So from your standpoint, why is the industry so reluctant to acknowledge that point? And why won't incremental optimization fix it?
I think we're living in a world in partner marketing where we're still metriced every quarter. A lot of budgets are given by quarter, and a lot of the activity's got to happen within quarter, and the results are needed within quarter. So, as a mindset, as an industry, we've all grown up with this quarterly metric of things happen within quarter. And kind of in the olden days, you would go to an event and you'd pick up loads of leads, you've had lots of conversations, and the buying journey was very, very different. And that program type worked because at the end of the quarter, you had your leads, and pipeline wasn't tracked digitally the way it is now. It's not modeled the way it is now. So it kind of worked. But a lot of programs and mindsets haven't really evolved in line with how buyers buy. And if you look at buyer journeys now, they're longer. There's more people involved. More people make a buying committee. So you look at things on account level. But the biggest shift in buying behavior is that it's gone very, very digital. And there's this whole concept of the dark funnel where buyers go and research on their own digitally. They engage with brands, they engage with content, and they have content served to them via AI in the way they want to consume it. So content types are shifting. AI has got a seat on a buyer journey now because websites are being optimized for, AEO, not SEO. And, our AI engines are feeding us information about brands and technology and helping us make our buying decisions. And that doesn't really fit within a quarter. So that's why we say, we've got to give partner marketing people a bit of a break and say, we've got to look at things over a longer time period. Because if you think about what can happen in a quarter, you can show impressions, you can show opens, you can show digital leads, you can show MQLs, you might be able to show a sales accepted lead or a sales lead, but you won't get to pipeline until maybe 6, 12, 18 months down the journey. And this is the big thing that we advocate a lot, is that we've got to stop thinking in quarterly cycles, because if we think in a quarterly cycle and we acquire leads, we follow them up, we report on them, we stop, and then we start again the next quarter, we're not working in line with buyer journeys, and there's a lot of wasted effort. So that's the way that we're trying to think about things, and we're trying to suggest to people, your budgets can transact within a quarter. We can share kind of KPI indicators of, buying intent and movement and pipeline growth within a quarter. But to really drive demand, you need to run longer programs. And the evidence for this is really clear, because if you look at how demand marketing teams within our vendors work, they work like that. They've got a huge MarTech stack. They've got huge campaigns, campaign teams that run over time, and they do all the things that I just spoke about. And they don't think in quarterly cycles, dump the lead, start again, dump the lead, start again. So really what I'm advocating is, is catching up with the way that digital marketers generate leads, but kind of right sizing it to fit channel and partners.
And it's so interesting that you brought up the quarter to quarter thought process, because, we came up as salespeople. I grew up as a salesperson to say, okay, you had a great Q1. Now let's crumble it up. Let's throw it away. And we're going to focus on Q2. We budgeted for you to go to this event, and we had all this marketing demand gen leading up to it. So, from a CRO or a CEO perspective, they're wanting to see a return on that investment pretty quickly. And they typically want to see it within the same quarter. And it's just not realistic, especially given, to your point earlier, that the modern buyer has changed. I mean, we like to say at Channelnomics that the modern buyers, and I'm talking about not only the millennials, but the Gen Zers, and in a few years when the Gen Alphas start coming on the scene, they don't like to talk to humans. And by the point that they get to a salesperson, they've already done 90% of the sell themselves, right? And so when you think about the answer to that, whether you're a marketing leader or a sales leader that needs to think about the way that they are generating demand, and maybe some of the old school salespeople, I'll raise my hand on that, not to age myself too much, but for those traditional salespeople that might not be grasping it in the right way to say, look, I'm working all this new digital technology. I am working with my marketing team to adapt to all of these new things. However, we're just not generating the result. We're just not experiencing the results of the demand that we're trying to generate. What would you think are some of the gaps that maybe the current salesperson or marketing people are missing right now?
I think it's that mindset of tactics, and people say, what's working at the moment? A webinar's working. Is there still a place for an event? What kind of digital is performing best? And I think the answer is that, they're all just ingredients of one good campaign. And, for a campaign to be successful, it's got to be, multi-touch, multi-persona, multi-channel, and engaging with people the way people want to be engaged with. And I think that's the biggest shift. I think the days of, having a content plan of lots of different types of content, you've got your white paper, your blog, your XXX, and posting them out there and expecting people to consume them. Buyers have evolved from that. People want everything summarized. They want it fed to them in the way they want to consume it. So, in the campaigns that we do digital campaigns, but around each campaign, we build a content hub. And within the content hub, we've got an AI layer on it. So people come into our content hub, and they can have a long form piece of content summarized to them. They can talk to an AI agent and say, if you've got this in video form, and the more content you put in there, you can drive lots of engagement through that one content hub and bring that into your heat mapping to show when people are ready for a sales conversation. But it's mainly about serving content up in the way people want to consume it. So again, I think, that tactic driven approach, if we're going to do an event, we didn't get a lot of leads from it, the event failed. No, the event probably didn't fail, because there might be somebody that in 6 months' time remembers your brand and goes back to you. So I think it's that orchestration mindset that we need to have, and we need to think like digital marketers. I mean, there's another interesting stat that, one of the first brands that are engaged within the buying journey is the brand that's chosen at the end of the buying journey. People make decisions early, and a lot of the digital research is about endorsing and validating those decisions. And that's where the people element comes in at the end. It's validating and having peer-to-peer networks and peer-to-peer groups to validate some of the decisions that you've made. So you've got to think about all of those things and blend them into, like I say, multi-touch, multi-persona, multi-channel strategy, which is really difficult. It's difficult for a vendor and big partner to do. And there's a lot of sophistication within partners. You know, you can have big partners with hugely sophisticated marketing engines, but they might not necessarily have the resource to own that as an alliance relationship with a vendor. And then you can have partners with no marketing skill and no marketing resource at all. And where do they start? You know, they'll hire a marketing manager that's focused on website and PR and events and tactics, but you need a multi-skill layer to be able to orchestrate and pull off a campaign like this. And even the sophisticated big partners, and there is a lot of marketing sophistication in partners. There's this myth that partners can't market. They absolutely can market, but they don't necessarily have the resource to dedicate to single campaigns.
It does, and the fact that it dovetails well into a question that I've been thinking about a while, and in shifting to more of the partner persona rather, is that, you know, a lot of vendors say, well, you know, enablement will equal sales. Our partners just need better enablement, and you've pushed back hard on that. And, you know, what is the capacity gap? You know, is it structural rather than motivational? You know, what are you seeing in terms of the enablement standpoint?
I think it's about having a right size program for partners. So rather than, again, having a one size fits all model, I mean, if you take a large vendor, they've got tens of thousands of partners. You can't enable all of those partners in the same way. They'll have different maturities, they'll have different skill sets, they'll have different motivations, they'll have different types. And you can't categorize partners so much by what type of partner they are, because partners, you know, don't self-categorize themselves like that so much anymore. So I think a smart way to do it is to layer in a categorization based on their attributes and looking at how they're performing for you, where they're showing up in other vendors' programs, how marketing capable they are, how sales capable they are, how technically capable they are. And again, modeling this data with some AI tools that we use that helps you define partner categories by attribute and type. And then you can design more personalized programs for those different types of partners. And I think that's the key, really. And I think, you know, always when people come to us and they say, right, we've got X amount of budget and we need to do some partner marketing and we want to market out. So we want to get all of these partners executed on our campaign kits. We kind of say, well, you can do that, but a better use of budget would be to do some managed campaigns that are really going to make a difference with a smaller number of partners. But before we start that, let's really look at which partners are going to be successful for us and what that ideal partner profile looks like in terms of a partner that's got the appetite and the skills and the hungriness to do some good demand gen. And let's focus on them. And then once we focus on them, you've got a budget case to do a few more and to do a few more. But the kind of blanket campaign kit out to lots of partners with lots of digital enablement to try and get them to come into a partner portal, download some assets and send it out. I don't see they've got a place for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider those, in many cases, check the box activities if you can't correctly attribute it to the right kind of activity that generates demand, but more importantly, converts it. And we all know that there is a stock difference between demand generation and demand conversion. And one of your core arguments is that the industry has confused those two thoughts: who generates demand with who converts it. So could you walk us through what changes when those roles are clearly separated?
I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier is, you know, why are we Why are we looking at metrics in that way? It's because we're in a quarterly based environment, and where you can't demonstrate partner-led revenue within a time period, the only thing to do is to go up a level and say, well, how many active partners have we got? How many active marketing partners have we got? How many campaigns in market have we got? And then you've kind of got the blind faith that if there's lots of activity happening, the revenue will be sure to follow. So to your point, who generates demand and who manages demand, our view is, let's just take the heavy lifting of the partners. If the investment that was put into, a lot of building the programs, building enablement, building the content, etc., is diverted into pure pipeline build, you're putting a lot more leads into your funnel to nurture because you don't have all of the noise around it. So it's quite a controversial opinion. But so our methodology say we'll do it for you. We'll do the messaging, we'll do the content, we'll do the concepts, we'll do the creative, we'll do the lead acquisition, we'll do the lead nurture, we'll do the ongoing digital nurture, we'll do the digital display, ABM around the leads. We'll put a BDR on there to build up number of contacts in each buying account. We'll lead score it within our CRM. And when we show that the digital lead has reached a level of lead score, we do a warm handover to the partner. And that is a very different model than an old fashioned partner model. But it's taking all of the heavy lift away from it. So, our message to vendors is, wouldn't you rather your partners are having those conversion conversations and the upfront target account list strategy conversations and the how are the leads performing conversations than they are trying to replicate a demand campaign each individually based on your same set of assets?
Most salespeople, whether you're a BDR, business development representative, or an inside salesperson, dialing for dollars, even if you're a advanced enterprise senior level salesperson, the hard part of those jobs is the prospecting component, the demand gen component. And the wonderful concept of 7Demand is you're taking all of that heavy lift to get to where these salespeople want to be. And it's those strategic conversations, the converting and the growing that healthy lead instead of chasing demand and trying to get every kind of demand that they can. So it's a wonderful concept, and I'm so glad that you're in the market leading that initiative. I would love to shift it a little bit to when you think about MDF, right? And it's necessary for a lot of vendors partner programs and is often treated as a sacred component to these programs. But you've called, the MDF per partner model a major blocker. Why is that, and what's the alternative? What would work better?
Well, I think so much MDF is wasted. So much MDF is left unclaimed by partners every year, and some of it is planned on, is planned not, and the vendors know it's not all going to get claimed. So, it's all kind of accounted for. But so much MDF is wasted, and if you look at why, one of the main reasons is it's just too hard for partners to understand the program, engage in the program, know what kind of activity can be funded, to do the, funding application, to execute the activity, knowing all the checkboxes checked, to invest in the activity before you're able to claim it back. So you've got the cash flow element to it. And then the risk of not being paid afterwards if the activity isn't approved for the number of leads or the metrics at the end of it. So a lot of partners don't spend it because they don't understand it, or they don't know it's available, or it's just too risky, or it's too much like hard work. So I think the better model, and which is where a lot of vendors are moving to, is more of a discretionary MDF. So, MDF allocated not contractually, but based on the quality of the plan presented. So what that means is that the vendor has got a pot, basically a budget that they can allocate out to the partners that present them with the good plans and the good ideas. So, if you did some really basic maths, if you had, 50 partners that each had 10K to spend, would you rather 50 partners spending 10K, or would you rather, one partner spending 500K and having some real impact with that 500K, or 5 partners spending 100K each? Because you can really make some impact with that over a long period of time, because to create the orchestration of good demand program is not a cheap activity, but it's all about the numbers, the number of digital leads coming in. And again, I think, salespeople fall back on appointment setting and say, well, appointment setting, because then we know we've got an actual appointment. But the conversion rate from appointments through to pipeline through to close don't stack up as well from a well-nurtured digital lead, because you haven't had the engagement, you haven't had the conversations, you haven't had all of the history and the tracking to have the personalized conversations. It's an appointment, and you show up there and your appointment either turns up or they don't, and it's about the conversation on the day. And that's a very high cost per lead activity to try and catch somebody at the end of the buying journey. But all of the data tells us that by the time that buying journey person is in that appointment, they'll have made a lot of decisions digitally, and they'll have been influenced by a lot of decisions digitally. So, surely it's better to follow the evidence and build up a digital relationship before you do the appointment setting.
I think long gone are the days where you get on planes and you go to your customer site and you start that deal from scratch up into close and relationship building. They don't really care about the relationship as much anymore, right? They've developed a relationship with the digital buying journey, and you are just a means to an end. When I say you, I mean like the salesperson, persona. And so I think that having 7Demand as the lead up to that point, to meet them where they are, so they're helping you connect, with that buying journey, that they're there, is a great concept. And as we're moving towards a close here, what I would love just to spend the last few minutes of our time on is, if I am a customer and I'm going, okay, Sophy, I need 7Demand's help. We need to really think about the way that we are meeting the buyer journey, where the buyers are right now. Where would one start? What is the good 90-day plan that people should take into consideration when they would work with a company such as 7Demand?
I would say start with a pilot. Pick 5, 10, 15, 20 partners that are hungry, that you've got your internal sales alignment with. So your internal reps are hungry to grow those accounts. You've got accounts that are hungry. And then spend time doing the boring bit up front, building target account lists, looking at where opportunities could be, layering intent data over data to see where there are pockets of digital buying signals, putting a good content plan together so you've got all of that nurture material ready for all of those conversations throughout that long buying period, and run it as a pilot. We do our pilots within a quarter, and we say we won't promise pipeline at the end of the quarter, but we'll promise a funnel to demonstrate that there is a funnel there, and all of that, conversation tracking and history goes with it. The other point I would say as well is not to underestimate the power of brand and the power of creative. Because when you say, those days are gone where you get on the plane and you go to go and meet your buyer, the buyer is investing in the brand, and brands are becoming more important, and people have got more kind of connections with brands these days, not just in IT, but everywhere. People are more brand loyal or brand disloyal, and we're influenced by it on social media all day, every day. So I think the importance of brand is very, very important, because it does influence those early buying decisions. But also AI is creating so much creative, so many campaigns and concepts and things like that. Everything starts to look a little bit samey. Don't underestimate the power of creative. And that's why we acquired a creative agency last year to bring that in, because the type of content that is working is personalized content, it's interactive content, it's engaging content, it's animation, it's movement, it's video, it's colors, it's stories, it's strap lines, and you can't do all of that with AI. So at least not at the moment. So don't forget the importance of brand and creative.
I love it. Well, sound advice, and this has been a wonderful conversation, and I've learned a lot, and and it's made me think about things in a way that that I haven't been thinking about before, and I'm sure my our audience would agree. So thank you so much for taking the time to have it, and for joining us here today. I can't thank you enough. So another huge thank you to Sophy Gray for joining us on this episode and for cutting through the noise and laying out such a clear case for funding partner pipeline, not just partner marketing. For anyone listening who wants to explore this further, head to 7demand.com, check out the latest Insights Hub, and explore the channel meetup community for senior channel and partner marketing leaders. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this episode of The Network Effect. If you found this useful, share it with a colleague. Follow us on LinkedIn and check out all of our past and future episodes at channelnomics.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.